Hello there, I'm Cole Lopez, the creator of Alchemia Ori Tarot. And this is a 79 card deck that is steeped in antiquity. I sort of like reached back in time and grabbed all the most beautiful pieces of art. It's a curated deck. So I've gone back into the Renaissance. It's very highly inspired by the Renaissance. Also, alchemy as a whole. So alchemical engravings from the Baroque period, classical pieces of art, romanticism. And it took me about a year to sort of like scour through all these different art styles and find matching, corresponding artworks that sort of matched the energetics of the card. So traditionally, tarot decks have 78 cards. Mine has 98, but there's 79 cards, and then you can alternate. So there's duplicates of certain cards so that you can sort of like curate exactly how, customize the deck to your liking, to your personality, and aesthetic, cards that speak more to you. And I originally grew up in New Orleans. And my mom would bring me to the French Quarter as a little girl. And I was just completely mystified by this world. We'd go into the tarot shops and the magic shops. I'd look at the crystals. My mom would get readings. And I was just completely taken by magic and mystery and the occult. And it grew throughout my life. I didn't actually start reading until much later in life. It's probably been, I think it's been about a decade now. And that was triggered by, I did The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And if you've never done this book, if you take one thing away from this video with me, that book will change your life. Honestly, she is a sorceress, that woman. Incredible, and helped so many artists and creators really bring or excavate whatever that thing is that makes us really excited, really alive. Um, so I did this book. It's a 12-week journey. And one of the exercises actually it was a prompt. And she asked, if you could do anything, if anything, like if you could be any profession, what would it be? And there was 5 different occupations that we had to list. And so I was like, tarot reader. That was one of them. Magician was another one. The other ones escape me in this moment, but then she further prompted, okay, so make a list of, like, I think something like 5 things. It's been a while since I've done the book, but it's sort of like this. Okay. Um, what are 5 things that you can do this week for your homework to really weave that into your life? So I started learning and studying the tarot. And even though it was introduced to me in my youth, I always it never really dawned on me to do it for myself. I sort of like had these grandiose expectations of being like very psychic, being able to not just read the cards, but like, get messages from spirits, or all these things. I had a very grandiose impression of what it took to be able to read cards. But really, it's about developing the intuitive faculties. All of these cards stand for archetypes of experience, things, transitional states that we experience throughout our life here on Earth, and hardships, radiant moments. It's the whole flow of being human. And so, and I've realized and I've noticed that the more we begin to sharpen and harness and bear witness to these intuitive faculties of intuition that we all have, it's just like going to the gym and working a specific set of muscles. They begin to develop and come to life. And all of a sudden, this yin felt intuitive part of self blossoms and comes to life. And we all innately have that. And it's something that is generally a little bit suppressed because of the way that we learn and what our society really prioritizes. But really, to be a well rounded human and to call upon all these different parts of ourselves, it's like the logical mind is amazing. That's how we get things done, make lists, follow through, it's great. But also, this intuitive pathway is just as beautiful and ever present. So when we begin to marry both these things, we're functioning in wholeness. So the more that I began to really drop into that, and that inner trusting and developing those parts of self, it's just been a really beautiful, fun exploration that has landed me here today. And I've brought this deck into existence. It's like the deck that I've always wanted. Um, is here now. So I have Julia Cameron to thank for that. And that book is so inspiring, and continues to inspire me daily through the different exercises that sometimes I pick up here and there. Um, yeah. And these ancient artworks, sometimes people would spend, that would be their life's work, a painting or a series of paintings. So the beautiful thing that really inspires me about this old world was their dedication to their craft, and really mulling it over, being with it like a piece of furniture. It would take thousands of hours to create this work of art. It's a very different mindset that is reflected in the culture. And of course, we see this in light and shadow. But the things that I appreciate are that being able to really sit with and work with and be dedicated and devoted to something, it's just a whole different time, a whole different mind. And I wanted to just reach back in time and bring these works of art back into present day, because the tarot is an old ancient art, and I wanted to bring works of art that span throughout that period of time. Everything is at least 100 years old, and some much, much older. So to bring artworks born from that time of when the tarot was really at its height and when it came into existence, to sort of, there's a resonance between these artworks. So I began to dive into researching different arts and different pieces of art, and seeing what really sort of just made sense, what locked in, and also matching in the alchemy. So, alchemy, which predates chemistry, is a huge inspiration for this deck. Alchemia ori means golden alchemy, essentially, in Latin. And this alchemical process that would happen to the philosopher, or the alchemist, rather. Um, my teacher puts it beautifully, Sage Papam. He says that alchemy is the transmutation of the base metal of the ego into the gold of the soul. And I just really love that, because it transcends the practice itself. It's like when we begin to really devote ourselves to these alchemical practices, in this case, it begins to sort of initiate the person through that process. So it's not so much about, my interpretation is not so much about changing a base metal, lead, into gold, but evolving the self, evolving the spirit. And the little bit that I have dabbled in plant alchemy, I have seen that plants initiate this sort of process. It's very magical to be in that current. So yes, New Orleans, and just sort of like being born of that world. And I also worked in apothecaries for many years of my life as an herbalist, and naturally, hand in hand, in that sort of like witchy vibe, the tarot was ever present. So all of my friends were always pulling cards. We sold decks and all these different apothecaries that I've worked at. I've worked at a few, some in New Orleans, some in New York City and Brooklyn. And yeah, so they were always around, and I was always really interested. My friends were reading, we're kind of doing one card pulls, we're reading the definitions from the book. It was like really fun, connective activity, and also just to see how interesting, how the energetics we were holding inside would appear on the outside through this card pull. I mean, I've seen it over and over again. The cards stand for very specific meanings, but you can also go beyond that as you develop your practice, to having sort of intuitive things come in that maybe there's no symbol in the card, but just something drops in. It can sort of work and flow in many different ways. So the group and the communities that I was around really inspired me to learn and sort of go towards that interest as well. And then with the process, it took me about 10 months to a year to pick all 98 cards. And there are some duplicates because there's just so many incredible pieces of artwork out there. I just sometimes I couldn't choose. So um, there's the variance there to create. And I actually keep all of the cards in my deck. I don't pick and choose between them. And I just sort of like leave it to fate to see what comes out. Um, yeah, and it comes with a guidebook, a PDF guidebook that can be viewed from a tablet, from the computer, from the phone. I'll be right here in my phone to read you a little excerpt from the guidebook here. So this is on the page Genesis, which I don't think you can really see the screen so well here, but you'll hear what it has to say. This 79 card tarot deck is steeped in tradition and can be used with any tarot guidebook. And I say 79 card because that's how many actual cards exist. And then there's alternate cards. So there's 98 cards, but 78 card meanings, if that makes sense. It includes an additional Arcana card and 19 alternate cards to customize your divinations. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn assigned all of the astrological correspondences within each of the 78 cards, along with titles to each of them, which are included in the card descriptions. Astrology, tarot, and Kabbalah are intrinsically interconnected in the Hermetic Kabbalah, a mystical tradition that uses the tree of life to traverse the heavens. The 78 cards of a tarot deck, the 12 signs of the zodiac, and the planets in our solar system all correspond to specific paths and aspects within the tree of life's diagram, forming a holistic system for spiritual understanding and personal growth. This amalgamation provides a rich architecture for illuminating universal patterns of existence and understanding the connections between humanity and the divine. So this is how the cards come here. And I hand brand the circle cross on the front here, which is not really picking up well. There we go. And I'd love to show you a few of the cards. Also, each one comes with a certificate of authenticity, which I hand sign, and also date and number each work. And there's the link here where you can claim your PDF guidebook or the ebook. So one of my favorite cards, well, I like so many of them, but this one here, Oraculum, which means high priestess or oracle in Latin. This card is so striking to me. I love the depth and the darkness of the skin against the paleness of the pink cloak here. And so if we see this penetrating stare on this character, on this figure, it really embodies the energy of this card. The high priestess, the oracle, stands for the intuitive self, seeing that penetrating gaze, piercing beneath the veil, seeing the unseen, and being guided by that depth, that inner place in our guts that we just feel and we know. It's like when someone walks into a room and or you're having a conversation with someone, your body's contracting or it's expanding. It's those sort of energetic feedback loops that the oracle embodies, that they prompt us to understand, to follow that lead. So I love this card, and this card I actually have, you can choose two different ones. This is an example of one where you can choose. Let's see if I can find it easily here. Oh, right on top. Here's another expression of the oracle, which is this is the Oracle of Delphi. Another beautiful painting here. And then I thought it'd be fun just to sort of put them back in here to do a little card pull and see what comes up. Let's see what our guidance for today is. I love doing readings because I feel like it's such a beautiful way to give someone undivided attention. And that's really something that can be lacking in our culture today, of just like really being, having someone's presence and awareness on us feels really beautiful and healing, and seeing what cards come through and what, if we're functioning in the light or we're functioning in the shadow, and what pathways, what tools, what can we call upon to bring balance in our lives, because everything that we're holding internally casts out externally. So when we heal the seed, our life changes. And I just find that so inspiring. And in my own process, it's been a very liberating force. So, okay, let's see. Give it a little shuffle. And if you would like to join in on the magic, the Boulder Bookstore sells the cards. All right, let's see here. The Wheel of Fortune. All right, we got it in the reverse position. So reverse will show energy as well. The Wheel of Fortune talks about cycles. It talks about, every card has an astrological correspondence as well. So this is a very expanding Jupiter energy, like letting blessings sort of rain down on us. But we also see the characters here of like one man is stepping on another man's head, and on the wheel is ever moving, ever turning. It's the cycles of nature. And we all have our time where there's a moment where things are just really flowing and abundance or prosperity is kind of coming in. And that can be in an energetic way. It doesn't necessarily have to be financial, but those days where you just get up and like things are flowing, things are connecting, things are just grooving, everything's lining up, it's feeling good. And then other times where it's a little stickier. Maybe things are challenging. Maybe we have to, maybe karma is really kind of like slapping us in the face that day and humbling us. And so the reversal I'm feeling is just like getting out of our own way and really just sort of surrendering and letting things flow and being open to universal wisdom, energies, and prosperity. So thank you so much. This has been so much fun. And thank you to the Boulder Bookstore. And take care.